All right, so let's dive into it here. So the Eagles win 34-29 on Friday night over the Packers. I did the postgame show. You were on afterwards as well, so you got a lot of a feel, at least for the fans. But I think part of our job, but I think the fans are the same. I was the same way when I was just a fan not doing this. You get a day or two to digest. You maybe go back and watch a little bit. You kind of your thoughts get a little more crystallized than maybe they were, okay? Here, I'll give you my takeaway, and I'm curious. I want to hear yours. First of all, like a good win, and here's why I say that. This is off of 6 of 7 that you lost where you looked horrendous last season. There was just a lot of weird stuff about the Brazil game. I know both teams were playing there. It's not advantage Eagles or disadvantage. I'm not saying that, but it was just weird, okay? So you had to sort of overcome that, a slippery field, all that stuff. You turned the ball over your first 2 possessions and still won the game, okay? Like, I think it's a good win, and no matter how it played out, it wasn't perfect. You're certainly going to be looking back at a lot of things, and we're going to dive into the negatives and the positives here. But for the most part, I came away from it feeling you handled your business in a spot where you needed to, because if you think about it, Brodes, if they lose, it's here we go again, Nick's a clown, all that kind of stuff, and they're still in that same wavelength that we were in last year. So that's just my initial sort of without real details where I see it.
And I am right on the same exact page as you. It was a good win. And I know last year a lot of the times we said we gave them praise because they were winning ugly, and it's hard to win 10 out of 11 games when you're not playing good football. So the fact that you could do that last season told a good sign, and then everything fell apart. So when you go back and use a very similar comparison to how the team was winning last year, maybe there's some PTSD involved.
Yes.
But reality is it was a good win, and there was a lot of adversity that was hitting this team based off of the amount of people that were in last year's locker room to this year's locker room. And the more and more I process and digest all of it, there's way more positives than there are negatives. And like you said, we'll run through them, but they're outside of Jalen Hurts and the poor decision-making, which is a huge one. It is a huge one. There were a lot of positives. Becton and Bond and Nakobe Dean and your stars, your skill position stars all stepped up. Kellen Moore and his creativity. Yes. There's a lot there that I think is only even going to progress even more. So it outweighs the big question mark, which is, who is Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, so all right, good segue. So let's go there. I want to start with the positives here, because when you had to have that sort of clock-eating, get you down the field, late drive after he had another costly turnover, you were able to do it. And it really reminded me of the Super Bowl season 2 years ago. Like, that had that vibe to it and that feel to it. I know they only got 3 out of it. They didn't get 7. You would have liked 7. But nonetheless, it put the Packers in a position where they really had no shot. It was a really classic sort of closeout. That's a good sign that you were able to do that and sustain it. And he made some really good throws on that. A couple slants to Devontae. He played really well on that last drive. That's good. He obviously makes a couple throws, like the dime to Saquon for the first touchdown is a beautiful touch throw. The throw to AJ was a nice throw. He certainly had his moments, but like you said, there were the last one was mind-numbing. The other one wasn't great either. At least it was early. But even before the last pick, he gets bailed out on the play right before that, which should have probably been a pick 6 or close to it. So here's where I'm left with Jalen. I don't feel really that different than I felt last year. This whole season felt like he made plays, but he also did some things where he threw 15 interceptions where I'm saying to myself, dude, what are you doing?
But even his best moments last year, and I don't think recency bias is playing a role here, but maybe it is, I don't know if his highs hit this most recent game's highs.
Yeah.
Because as you allude to, those throws to Saquon and AJ and that fourth quarter drive to Devontae, I don't really remember seeing those wow level of plays last year. Of course, they had to be in there to some level when you were winning games, but I just thought it felt more 2022 last year with his highs. I don't know if I really felt that at all last season. So hopefully there's something to that. We are factoring in a new play caller. We're factoring in a new offensive line and more stuff for him to do at the line of scrimmage without Jason Kelce. So maybe not having any game feel in this first game is what made him make some of those decisions. And I also wonder, too, we did hear him speak recently about wanting to use the middle of the field, and Nick Sirianni maybe didn't last year, didn't trust him. I don't know how that whole dynamic played out. But do you feel like maybe there was something in him that tried to prove I can do this, and maybe this is a smack in the face of reality? Yo, dude. Now, he doesn't feel like that guy because he's Mr. I'm coachable, but I'm trying to throw everything out on the table right now and figure out what the hell we got.
I don't know. It might be that. The one other thing I'll say is, and again, when I say this, I'm not making an excuse for him. I'm not. I'm not trying to rationalize it. But I do think maybe he still has some visions of last year in his head, and he's still in sort of hero ball mode where he doesn't have to be. You got Saquon, you got AJ, you got Devontae, you got Goddard. Like, you don't have to be that guy. But I feel like he might still be putting pressure on himself from last year. Like it's more the last one that just drove me nuts. Like, dude, you had 3. You were going to make it an 8-point game. The best they could have done was tie you. You can't do that. Like, I hope that that's what it is, where he's just like, you know what? I got to just live to see another day. I got to put that into the seats. I hope that's what it is, because you don't want him to sort of become the Wentz guy where he's trying to do way too much.
You read my mind. For the first time in my life, though, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, I asked myself this question, and I'm not using this quarterback as a legitimate comparison because Jalen doesn't have the arm, but Josh Allen is a turnover machine.
Yeah.
But if you have Josh Allen, you're thrilled with all the wow plays and the amazing drives and the huge touchdowns and all that, but you got to live with the bad. And forever, I thought Jalen Hurts and his strengths was he keeps the ball in the possession of the Eagles. He's not throwing interceptions. He's not turning the ball over. His stat line will never wow you to death because he might not put up 450 yards with 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, but it might be 280 yards with no turnovers, and you live with that. But do we have a quarterback where you have to live with the really ugly and also live with the really high highs? And he's closer to Josh Allen in that department than not. And I never asked myself that ever in my life.
But I think you have to ask it. I think it's TBD right now. I think we're going to know for sure. I think it's going to be cemented after this season.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
Can you win with that?
You can, but it's a much tougher way. Here's what I like in that kind of, like, the Josh Allen. Josh Allen is like sort of a Kyle Schwarber. Like, you got to live with some. Where you're like,
that's good. I like that. Yeah, that's good.
That at bat looked bad. And then the next one he hits into the next universe.
That's a good comparison.
So I think there's a little bit of that, and I don't want him to be that guy. I'll be honest with you. I don't want him to be that guy. I'd rather live with conservative numbers and conservative whatever and stat lines that maybe aren't blowing you away. But I don't know right now. That's the simple answer is you're coming off a season where he turned it over 19 times, and he probably could have had 4 picks in this game. So can I say he's turned a page? No, I can't say it, but I'm also not ready to pronounce him as a turnover machine yet. For me, it's too soon to do that.
It is too soon. I'm just trying to walk through this and
no, I know what you're doing
and digesting.
I see the wheels.
Yeah, the wheels are spinning in my mind because I'm replaying that fourth quarter drive, and that's how you won games. Think about being on the other side of the field. You got your helmet in your hand. You're the opposing team's quarterback, and you're standing next to your OC, begging to go out there with 7 minutes to go, down in the football game, and all you want is one more chance. And the Eagles suck your soul out of your body.
Yeah.
And the next time you see the ball, you used all your timeouts, and there's 20 seconds left on the clock, and the Eagles were able to do that, and that is a winning habit. That's a winning skill. That's something that separates the great teams from the good teams, and we saw that. But you're so right to bring up all the negative throws with Jalen, so I'm in a very awkward position.
I know, and the thing is, just to get back to the drives, they do so many things. I mean, they check so many boxes. Number one, like you said, whoever it is, Jordan Love, is not getting on the field. You're not hurting me. You're standing on the sideline. I'm eating clock. So I'm going to give you either nothing or next to nothing where you're in Hail Mary mode. And unfortunately, he got hurt. You hate seeing that, but you know what I'm talking about. And then the other thing is, like, it just shows you between Saquon and these killers you have on the outside, like, you can be unstoppable. You can be. Like, if everything's right, that should be able to the norm. I can remember 4 or 5 times that happened in 2022 where you just 8, came down for a game-winning field goal or whatever.
Right.
And it's that, to me, was like something I took away from that game. Like, damn, they can get back to this. And the last thing, and we're going to get into good and bad, I loved the way Kellen Moore called that game.
Yeah.
Loved it.
You know, it almost puts it in perspective on how Nick Sirianni at one point in his life said motioning is dumb. it actually irritates me because you could see how the design opened up so much in the field. So I want to put you real quick in the defensive coordinator's shoes of an opposing team. You want to stop the run? How do you do that? Well, what's A.J. going to do or Devontae? And then if you want to try and stop A.J. Brown, what's that box going to look like? And Saquon Barkley's clearly going to feast. It's got to be hell trying to draw something up to stop this team.
It does. And the thing that we're going to keep saying, we're going to see it Monday night, too, against Atlanta, believe me. But they're going to blitz him. They're going to keep blitzing him.
He did good against the blitz.
And he did right. That's the thing. Like, that was the Achilles heel, especially. There was a bunch of them, but especially that last year.
3rd and 8, that throw to, was it AJ or Devontae?
He
Someone was right on his
and he
back.
got smoked.
Yeah. That's a big throw.
So that, to me, is another thing you take away and you say, okay. So it looks like there's an improvement there. So there's a lot of good to take away. But we're not going to ignore the bad either, because there were, other than the turnovers, there were other things that you're saying to yourself, oh, boy, I don't know. All right, let me give you a stat from the Giants today who got their butts kicked.
Please do.
All right, Ryan Novozinski, who is a Giants reporter for the Star-Ledger, okay? How about the last 2 season openers, last year, this year? They have lost by a combined 68-6. Good start, baby.
And for as much as I rip Nick Sirianni, his starts,
very
good.
He wins out of the chute.
Very good. That's why I don't complain about the preseason stuff. Yeah, there were a couple snaps that I would prefer not to happen, and Cam Jurgens, trust me, I don't like it, but the results, it can't be luck if every single year the Septembers are pretty smooth.
No, it's not luck. All right, so before we get back to the phones, let's start on the positive note, okay? And the obvious one is winning. Let's not bury the lead, Saquon, okay? Saquon, and believe it or not, it did start a little slow in the first quarter, but then, man, it came on, and you saw everything. You saw the whole kitchen sink there. The catch for the touchdown, which, granted, a phenomenal throw. Not an easy catch to get both feet in.
No.
Really skilled catch. But then, man, you saw the big runs. You saw tough in between the tackle stuff where you're dragging guys. The one touchdown, he gets turned around. His back is to the end zone, and he still carries them in. It was all on full display in that game.
It really was, and I'm cracking up because I have to imagine when he's running behind Mekhi Becton, who, by the way, never even played the position before and did a damn good job, he's probably thinking to himself, I've never in my life seen this much field ever. Look what he's able to do. That's what he's able to do against, and this is no disrespect to Becton, but imagine if we had prime Brandon Brooks with prime Lane Johnson and prime Jason Kelce, and that's your right side of the line. He's stuck with a lot of that garbage up in New York. He's probably thinking, this is going to be the best year of my life, and he was doing everything.
No,
closer to Christian McCaffrey than we've had damn good running back. Sanders here was doing a lot of good things.
1,300 yards.
Right, yeah. Swift last year was really good, and this somehow even adds another layer, which is just amazing.
I mean, he's got to be sitting there looking, at the guy in number 1 directly in front of him like, okay, Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts. Then he's got to go outside and looking at AJ and Devontae saying to myself, are you kidding me with the slop that they were running out as receivers the last few years? And then Goddard, et cetera. But you're right. So he was, look, Howie's got to be sitting back with a cigar. Like, okay, So that was great.
You see him as a cigar guy?
Nah.
No.
I don't even know where that came
Definitely
from.
not.
All right. So that was really good. And the other thing is, I want to go back to what we saw from Kellen Moore. The play design was there. I thought he had a good flow and a good feel for things. Green Bay's defense was really good last year. This was a good team. And, you put up, a 34 spot on them out of the chute. It just really makes you think what can come when they really start hitting their stride.
Absolutely. You saw design open things up. You saw how he was eyeing up matchups and using motion and using A.J. Brown.
Setting up things.
Exactly. Using routes to open up a linebacker to be on Saquon, and Saquon takes advantage and all that stuff. It's sad because I think we're basing it off of last year. And the bar was set so low that basic standard NFL concepts that, it's football. It's football stuff, and we're over here going, this is amazing.
Yeah.
We're going from last year's debacle. This is just standard football stuff, but we got the heart eye emojis, and we're in love with it. Right? Reasonably so. But
the other part is, again, one game, get it. Beck didn't look good.
Very good.
Jurgens held his own. Like, the two parts that you were really scared about with the offensive line, or at least, had some concern about, Those guys acquitted themselves pretty well.
Here's the one negative factoring in the run game stuff. Unless do you want to do all positives and then negatives? Okay, I'm just
no. Go ahead.
Okay.
Let's just stream of
spitball?
conscious.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the negative with the run game. I don't know if Hurts can move anymore. Does he look? I always thought it was an ankle or something from last year. Maybe it's design, and the Packers or any team we play is going to say, "Don't let Hurts beat you," and try to make the run game as one-dimensional as humanly possible. I'm not sure. He had the one good run in the fourth quarter with the first down play where he took some bodies with him. Other than that, he doesn't look spry anymore.
Here's, I thought, was a really interesting point. I'll give credit where credit's due. Our caller brought it up earlier. Jason Avant made a really interesting point to me. Because we were talking this, I was doing the same thing. I was saying the same thing you were saying. I'm like, I don't know, man. Or maybe he's just protecting him. I don't know, whatever. But he said the biggest thing that you saw in 22 was it was a lot of downhill Hurts as opposed to, lateral stuff. He said he's not a burner. Like, he's not Lamar Jackson in terms of just being like a sprinter out of the gate. He's not that guy. He's a pickup speed, snowball going down the hill, strength, break an arm tackle or plow a guy if he has to. He said you can't. You're doing him a disservice trying to run him left-right. You got to go downhill more, off tackle, that kind of stuff.
The more you say that, I do kind of visualize him going more east-west than north-south with the run. So maybe that's something that they change.
But I'm with you. Like, I don't know. I'm like, is he trying to protect himself? Does he not want to get hurt? I don't.
And with Saquon, do we need that element as much as we thought we needed that element?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah. So,
probably not.
That's interesting. All right. Now, I want to jump to the other side. And look, AJ did his thing, and Devontae, just classic, just money, catches everything, routes, precision, the whole thing. Linebacking was obviously a huge concern going into this season, as it should have been because it was horrific last year. Zach Bond was everywhere, and Nakobe Dean did a real nice job. Really nice job.
I am bothered by the drop pick 6.
I
and that
get it.
Stayed with me for a while, but as we got another night's sleep, I think I'm doing a little bit better handling it because he was in a lot of great positions. Not good in coverage, good downhill.
Yes.
So when he goes downhill,
run support, excellent.
Big time. You could see the instincts of a true linebacker taking over. Devin White might be a disaster, but I guess that's for another day.
How about all those stories that they were trying to trade him? Jeff
Something's
McClain
not
had
right.
that. Yeah,
something's not right behind the scenes, and Howie paid him some money, so it is fascinating. Bond.
Yeah, man.
So it's funny. When they were talking about him in training camp, he was so slotted in. I was annoyed by it because the guy's never played the position, and I'm going, this dude better be the greatest linebacker I've ever seen. Maybe he is.
Well, yeah. We thought he comes here, he's going to be he was a killer on special teams in New Orleans, and he was going to be an edge guy. But they're like, nah, he's a real linebacker. He's a natural line. Huh?
I thought we'd get something similar to Alex Singleton.
Yeah.
Or one of those, which is what Howie does. He filters in these random special teamers. You try and slot them in, ask him to do stuff. Whoa.
You know what the difference is? I think he was a Fangio guy. I think Fangio saw something in him and said, I want that guy.
A lot of people who cover the league referenced Van Ginkel as
who had a pick 6 today.
He did.
Yeah.
So they saw something.
Yep.
They saw something to say Fangio might be able to find a new guy and somewhat mold him into a Van Ginkel type, and at least for one game, seems to be trending that direction.
And by the way, 6 o'clock hour, we'll update you on the scores of what's going on in with the games that are happening right now. But anyway, I want to stay on the positive for a minute. Now, I don't know that he had what you would call a spectacular game. There weren't like signature moments where he had an interception, blah, blah, blah. But you can see it with Quinyon Mitchell. Sometimes you just know it when you see it. And did he get beat a couple times? Yeah, but he's fearless. He's right in everybody's grill.
Yep.
Like there is, and I think this is a byproduct. A, I just think he's a confident kid. But B, this is going against AJ and Devontae every day. It's not like you're going to all of a sudden be like, oh my God, this guy that I'm taking on now. No, you've been dealing with those guys all camp.
I know.
He looks like the real deal.
He looks like a stud for sure. And I've been begging Howie over the last however many years to take a corner in the first round because Slay is going to get up there. I didn't expect Bradbury to fall off as much as he did, but you need that guy, that staple that you could just plug in and know that that's solidified. And it seems like we're going to have that moving forward. It's going to be interesting, though, because he hasn't played the slot, yet you heard great things about camp and Isaiah Rodgers maybe being opposite of Slay. I'm curious what it looks like in the slot compared to we just saw and got a taste of what he really is. So I don't know. I'm wondering about the dynamic and how that's going to work out. I wanted to see their real vision, which was Isaiah Rodgers playing outside with him in the slot more. I think getting him on the outside opened up a new door for me that I wasn't prepared for early, if that makes sense.
I think their thought before Rodgers had the hand was, he's too good. We got to get the guy on the field.
Just put him out there.
I'm in favor of that in any sport. Like, you'll figure it out. So that's a great sign with him. But the fact that there's some depth now, like you didn't fall off a cliff because Rodgers couldn't go, and you can plug him in out there was really good.
And it's not Josh Jobe and Eli Ricks, and no disrespect to those guys.
And they were thrown into spots they shouldn't even have been thrown into.
Exactly. And now you have real legitimate options.
No question. So that was good. The one other thing I'll say is, and I know sometimes foot speed's an issue, and he's going to get beat by like some stud tight end. Okay. Reed Blankenship has a nose for the ball. That was a really nice pick.
You know where it started, though? Zach Bond.
Yeah, true.
Zach Bond. Yeah. He was in the middle of the field. He kept his hands in the area of the football. But you're right. Reed does have instincts out there.
Yeah, and it was a nice read, no pun intended, on it. And it wasn't one of those just an awful throw by the quarterback. And I think the other thing we have to take into account is Green Bay finished last season the polar opposite of the Eagles, like scorching hot. To beat them essentially on a neutral field, and be able to withstand, like I'll put it to you this way. For some of the things that happened in that game with the Eagles turning the ball over, shooting themselves in the foot, they lose that game last year.
100%.
So maybe that signals, the mindset is a little bit different now.
Not only do they lose that game, they're down 21-0 early.
Yeah.
And the defense, it's such a weird game defensively. The whole team, you can look through parts of the roster.
It was a weird game.
Mixed bag everywhere.
Yeah.
The defense got beat for explosive plays, which is everything that Vic Fangio doesn't want to do. Yet the red zone was fantastic early on as they were put in bad
Third
position.
down, they were good.
They were so good. So you're 6-0 when it should be way worse, and it gives your offense life. The defense won you the game early on.
Yeah, it did. It so kept you in it. When it was only 6, you're like, they should be getting killed here. And that was huge.
Those first 2 offensive drives, you couldn't even draw up
No.
worse situation. I guess the one thing maybe you can hold your hat on to, if you wanted to, is the reason you were even in 3rd and 15 to begin with is because you slipped the first play with Saquon on the field. If you're playing on a real field, maybe it's 2nd and 5 and your offense gets a way better drive to start a football game.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the other thing, like you have to expect Juergens is going to have some growing pains. And the early snap when Jalen wasn't ready for it, like that stuff's going to happen. You survived it. Hopefully that's a learning lesson for both of them. And they cut away to the sideline. They were talking about it, blah, blah, blah. So that was sort of fluky-ish that I don't know that you'll be seeing a lot more of that. We'll get into the negatives in a second. Right now it's Robert in Germantown. Robert, you're on 94 WIP.
Great show, guys.
Hey, Robert.
Wonderful analysis. Beautiful day.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Perfect weather. So I was watching the Yankee-Cubs game earlier, and it took me back to May 17th, 1979, where I was sitting in the stand on a windy day in Chicago watching the Cubs play the Phillies. And the final score, guys, you'll remember the game, 23-22. We won.
You were at that game?
I was at that game. And
Schmidt had 4, didn't he, in that game?
No, 2. Kingman had 3. But the total game, 11 home runs, 50 hits.
50 hits.
That's insane.
Oh, my God. That's an awesome game to have been at. That's cool.
Yeah, but here's my point. I looked up their schedule, and I missed this, and I wish all of baseball would get back to this, particularly in September and October, and it'd be good for the next generation of kids to play. I loved it. In those days, the Cubs didn't have lights. Every game was an afternoon game.
That's right.
And their schedule still reflects that. They have a lot. 3 games in a row were afternoon games with the Yankees. Who does that anymore?
No, you don't see it anymore. You're right.
Robert, I know that everyone is entitled to watch their own thing, but I do think it's very fascinating. You go Cubs-Yankees on NFL first day of football at 1 o'clock. I respect it. I respect it a lot. But that takes something. That takes something.
Well, I figured the Giants weren't going to do anything. I'm watching Dallas now.
Well, you were right.
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah, no, I figured. But, I'm troubled by – do we really think that Dak Prescott, of all people, is getting the all-time NFL salary? Does that make any sense to you guys?
No, but here's the thing, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, spoiler alert, Dallas is up 20-3 right now. But anyway, They're going to win games. They win games every year. Their problem is, and Dallas is the ultimate when it comes to this. Call me when the playoffs start. Like that's where it's all going to happen. And you saw what happened last year against Green Bay, the pick sixes. He was a disaster. It's a lot of money to give the guy, but you put yourself in that position by screwing around like Jerry Jones did.